Mr. and Mrs. Scott, and Mr. and Mrs. Yandel, ladies and gentlemen, may I say how marvellous it is to see you all here this morning to help me celebrate my 50 years in Holy Orders. 50 years. As Mrs. P said a few moments ago, I'm amazed that you weren't defrocked long time ago. She's perfectly right about that episode with the anti-hunting journalist. You may remember that I was up before Bishop George Carey on his orders. But as we'd both been to a crammer together, the same crammer together, he couldn't say too much because he was as backward as I am. But it is marvellous to see you, and for me, the Devon and Somerset Staghounds has been the golden thread that has guided me through my sporting life. And so it's wonderful to see Donald and I here today, and we do thank him, Donald, and his masters for all they do for us today. A very difficult job, and they do it jolly well. I have been fortunate to follow the Devon and Somerset on a horse since 1936, when my parents had the hounds, long time ago, 1936, but I do remember that season and every consecutive season after that, because I had the good fortune to ride behind Ernest Borden, Alfred Lenthal, Walter Perry, Bill Locke, and Dennis Boyle. I was too old to hunt behind Donald, I'm afraid, but we do commend him very much for what he does. So I've had a wonderful time with the Devon and the Somerset, and I'm very proud to have been a supporter and follower since 1936. I wouldn't say I've ridden regularly. I was beautifully mounted by Frank Mullins of the White Horse, who many of you may remember, and it was great days on Frank's horses. In my time in the Army, which was 20 years in the Royal Army Chaplains Department, I supported all the local packs in Catterick and Colchester and all round there, and I had some wonderful sport, like Sir Robin Dunn before me, with the Zetland and the Beedale. And I'm sure he would remember those days.
He is right here.
Oh, well done. He hunted with the Zetland and Beedale long before me, but we both agreed that we had some wonderful sport when we were both stationed at Catterick or in that area. And they were very kind to me in Yorkshire. And then from Catterick, I went on to Ireland, and I had some wonderful sport in the south. I managed to escape from the police station in Northern Ireland. I went down to the south and had some wonderful days with the Galway Blazers and the Fanshaws and the Limerick and the Tipperary. It was when I was hunting with the Limerick and Lord Daresbury, the two farmers came up to the meet and sidled up together, and they pointed at me, and they were heard to say, "Ah, sure, he rides quite well for a Protestant." They were happy days, and I'm very lucky that I had a reasonable, sympathetic commanding officer who let me go down to the south to hunt with the Premier packs in Ireland. Now, I think that's probably enough from me. I don't want to bore you anymore with my unlikely stories, but one thing we want to do today is to pay tribute to the Honourable Mrs. Rosie Pease, who's done an awful lot. For fox hunting and racing, and also her parish church. And later on, her padre will be paid Rosie has been for many years the Mary Poppins of the Taunton Vale Fox Hunt. She's done an awful lot for them, and she's done an awful lot for racing as well, because she's produced some marvellous yearlings at her stud farm, Polly, near Ashhill. And she's produced some wonderful horses, wonderful mares. I think probably the best was Mr. Gurren, who was beaten a short head in the Turkish 2,000 guineas and winner of 7 races in Turkey. But her record is pretty remarkable. Aside outstanding breeding and wonderful race of yearlings which she's bred. But she's here today, and in a moment we're going to present her with the Una Medal, which is a lovely Victorian medal, and which she richly deserves and is long overdue, in the words of Winston Spencer Churchill. Richly deserved and long overdue. So in a moment, Rosie, it would be lovely to give you the medal, for all you've done for fox hunting and racing and the parish church.
Well, Rex has commended Rosie to you for all her riding and equestrian activities. As a near neighbour and fellow parishioner in Ashhill, as part of the Una Medal is for services to the Christian Church. I have to commend Rosie for that part of her great achievement. She is amazing. She comes to church regularly. She supports the church. She even listens to my sermons and sometimes is complimentary. And that is dangerous, because she told her grandson what a good preacher I was, and I found myself preaching in a school in Northamptonshire. That's all I want to say. Congratulations to Rex and congratulations to Rosie.
Thank you very much. There is one story, one fox hunting story of Rosie, which I'm sure she won't mind my relating. The famous day when she arrived at the meet with her horse box, all ready for a really good day's fox hunting, and she opened up the box and she found she'd left the horse behind. But her exploits are now in the history books. Thank you very much. Right, now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I promise not to keep you long. I'm sure there's a stag waiting somewhere. It really is the most glorious day to be up on Exmoor, a most un-Exmoor-like day. And all I can say is the Lord is shining down upon you, Rex, on this great occasion. And we really, everybody here, would like to thank Rex, Tamsy, and the Hubertus Society for the most wonderful hospitality they've produced here in the field. Thank you very much. Well, I think it's the first time in the history of hunting that I can remember that we've had the honour of celebrating somebody's 50 years in holy orders. Congratulations, Rex. And wonderful, I'm afraid he stole a lot of what I was going to say about his family connections with hunting. But I do know that his parents paid great service to the staghounds in their day, and it was interesting. I knew that his father was my father's great friend back then, and Rex informed me today that in fact my father was best man at Rex's father's wedding, so we do go back quite a long way. The other thing we all know and love about Rex is his willingness to serve every family who asks him to take a funeral service on Exmoor. I mean, it's a funny thing to be famous for, but I think you're very famous for that, Rex. And I'll go as far as to say I was only told this week by a dear friend of mine, who I know is here today, that he's actually got it written in his will. So we know and love you for doing that, Rex. Oh, definitely. definitely, and you've got to be there to do it.
Yeah, right.
I can only reiterate what I know you all feel. Thank you, Rex. Thank you, Tamsy. Thank you, everybody. And we'll do the draw for the whiskey in a minute, because Neil here is very kindly going to bless the hounds, which I think is a huge honour and a wonderful thing to do on such a glorious day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It is, as ever, a great pleasure to be here. Where are they? Someone will come closer. Very good. Receive our thanks, O Lord, this day. For 50 years, the Reverend Rex has ridden and bestrode the Exmoor heights, and for centuries more, the staghounds have given chase across these hills. Bless horse and hound and huntsman, give them vigour, nose and will, and from the hill bring better men for their following of the hunt, like Rex, to follow faithfully in the path that leads to Christ. Amen. Amen.